So my husband passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2016. And what I discovered immediately afterwards is that people have lots of assumptions about how to treat someone who's experienced that kind of a loss. And I decided that I was not going to be a good widow. I was not going to go along in the trend that I was expected to go on. I was going to be a bad widow. So that's where the name comes from. I am very comfortable with my dead. I lost my brother when I was 25. I've lost grandparents. I've lost friends. Yeah. I'm going to go back to my grandparents. I am the oldest of the grandchildren. So I'm the boss. And my brothers will say I'm bossy. But we used to go up to my grandparents' place in Connecticut. My grandfather was from England. He met my grandmother when she was on her grand tour, and they met in Germany. He was in the army. And fell in love, communicated by letters for 2 years, and then got married. She was from a family in Virginia. And she went across to England, and it really didn't work out. And so he uprooted himself and came to the States. And we would spend Christmases and Thanksgivings and all of that up at their place. And the table was covered with an oilcloth tablecloth very often. And there was this little iron candelabra that the candles went in. And from England, they brought the monk. So the monk is a candle snuffer. You can see his little face, I think. He's got a monk's cap, a very stern looking face. He's got a nose and a mouth. And this came from England. My grandfather was from a pretty venerable family. When he died, he was 99 years old. So this item is over 100 years old in my family. And my grandmother would sit at one end of the table, and she was very little, and my grandfather was pretty tall, and he would sit at the other end of the table, and he was pretty gruff and stern. And we would eat, and the children were expected to behave. And then at the end of the dinner, the children would clear the plates, and one favored grandchild was told to go and get the monk from the kitchen and put out the candles. And so very often it was me. I was the first one. And I was very often the favored one. And you would come out and there were 6 candles because it was a multi. And so you would put the monk over the candle and feel it, because it's metal, it's iron, feel it heat up. And you could take it up. And when you took it up off the candle, it would smoke, right? As it got more oxygen, and put it down and eventually put it out. But when I look at my monk, I am at that table with my grandparents. And I'm at that table, and that's one of the things that rituals and traditions do for us, I think. I'm at that table with my grandparents and with my family and with my cousins, but I'm also, in the retirement community. My grandfather died when he was 99. My grandmother died of ALS. I was the one with her when she decided to stop eating. I was the one who stood for her until my grandfather and my mother could get back from Maine. And so it brings all of it up, not just sitting around the table, but that community and that love and that history over 100 years. I put when I was showing this morning, I put my finger in, and when you put a candle out in a candle snuffer, it gets black inside. And it's black inside. And I don't know the last time it was washed, honestly. But this reminds me of my grandfather going in his walker on his 99th birthday and opening the champagne and flowing it all over my mother, about 3/4 of it. It reminds me of my grandfather insisting on going down to stow the boat in Maine. And us being on the roof and hearing this tiny voice say, "Help," and running as fast as I could because he had gone into the water, and swimming to him. And he said, "Get away from me. I'm fine." And holding him up. So, the interesting thing about things is this is a kitchen thing, but this kitchen thing pulls the threads of my relationship with my family and with my grandparents. It pulls up the love, it pulls up the grief, it pulls up the joy, it pulls up everything. Just this small thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.